vaccinated between 2021 and 2022. In order to address the urgent problem of oxygen-related availability in the country and avoid potential loss of lives, provision is also made for the procurement and installation of new oxygen implants nationwide and repaired existing plants in FCT hospitals. Mr. President, considering the state of insecurity in our country, our security and law and order institutions and agencies urgently need to consider additional achievements as well. As a step in addressing the lingering labor crisis in the health sector of this country, the 2021 Supplementary Appropriation Bill proposes additional funds for public service wage adjustments to cater for sundry wage-related issues in the health sector and also in other sectors of the economy, which, if not resolved, can add to the prevalent sense of instability in the polity. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the supplementary budget request is for a total sum, as I said earlier, of 895,842,465,917 naira only. The federal government, in this supplementary appropriation bill, proposes to fund the 45.63 billion of the 83.56 billion required for the COVID vaccine program by drawing on existing World Bank loans, which would be restructured, as well as other grants totaling $113.22 million. The balance of 37.93 billion required for COVID-19 vaccines, salaries, and other related expenses totaling 41.69 billion naira, and the 48.20 billion recurrent component of the defense security expenditure would be funded by drawing 135 billion from some special reserve and levy accounts. The supplementary appropriation proposes to fund the balance of 722.40 billion for capital expenditure on defense and security and capital supplementation from new borrowings in the absence of any supplementary revenue sources. Despite the needs of other sectors, the supplementary budget proposal is limited to just these critical emergency areas and emergency areas of need due to our severe fiscal constraints as a country. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the defense and security of our nation and its people is the highest priority of the government, while keeping Nigeria COVID-19 free has been a challenge for this government, which will continue to be addressed until this dreaded pandemic is over. A key step has been for all the adult population to receive its first dose of the vaccine, while the second round of the vaccination has already commenced, and with this supplementary appropriation, we hope we will get it right. Finally, Mr. President, I believe that all the proposals in this supplementary appropriation are laudable and will enhance the critical need of the citizens of the country. I therefore urge our colleagues to support the second reading of this bill for further legislative action.
Two key issues: the topical issue of security challenge in our country, which all of us know and are concerned about. And the second is the global pandemic of the novel coronavirus. And I think they are not controversial. I will urge my colleagues to support this budget supplementation for the nation to move forward. I so second.
The country is in severe distress as far as security situation is concerned. Virtually all the geopolitical zones are having one security challenge or the other. And the intervention of the federal government at this critical time is very timely. And I support the amount to be appropriated for security. And equally important is the COVID-19 pandemic we have. The pandemic is still around, vaccination is below 4% based on what we had, and it is good that adequate provision is being made to cater for the vaccination of Nigerians. And we all know international travels will be very difficult without getting vaccination. And even local travels within the country, if you are not vaccinated, you will not be allowed to board any aircraft in the next 6 months based on the information we are getting. So it is important that we support the second reading of this supplementary appropriation bill, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.
Let me also join my colleague in commending the effort of President Muhammadu Buhari for coming up with this supplementary budget at this point in time. As we are all aware, that there are two major issues currently confronting us as a nation, and one of which also confronting us globally. The first is the issue of the insecurity. And you quite agree with us that there is need for proper funding of all our security apparatus for us to be able to confront these security challenges. And secondly, the issue of global pandemic. The whole world is involved in this. Nigeria cannot be left behind. And there is need for us to vaccinate our people. And in doing that, there is need for us to have more than 70% of Nigerians to be vaccinated. And don't forget that there are new variants in town. The Delta variant is there, the British variant is there. And if you look at the structure of the financing of the supplementary budget, it is explicit enough. The only borrowing element of this 800, more than 75% of this supplementary budget is for capital expenditure, which is committed to our national security. And the borrowing plan to do this is just 715 billion, which is still within the threshold of 3% as contained in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And the government has put in place other sources of augmenting, like the issue of issuance of about 105 from special account, and also special levies. Special account, these are already existing accounts where the funds are already there. And I believe that through judicious application of this fund, we will be able to tackle these two major issues that is currently before us. So I want to allay the fears of my colleagues that additional supplementary budget that we are considering now, it is not out of place. It is just in preparation and also preparing us to ensure that issues confronting us as a nation is adequately attended to. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I implore all my colleagues to also join us to support this supplementary budget, and so that we can pass it with the speed of time, and so that the President can go to work regarding the security and also vaccination.
If we look at this supplementary budget proposal, we see that, of course, two important aspects for the budget. That's the COVID-19 and also the security issue. Mr. President, I could recall before we went on this 1 week break, we discussed the issue of security here. Of almost all 30%, 70% of our colleagues contributed. So since we have this opportunity, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think I could go on in my contribution. I made mention that 2020 budget, there was provision of almost 500 billion, but only 30 billion was earmarked for arms and ammunition. So now that we have this proposal again, I think it's very, very important if this chamber will make sure that at least substantial amount of this supplementary provision go to this arms and ammunition. Because definitely our militaries and also the police and everybody are liking this important aspect of the security aspect of this nation. So definitely we have to look at it, and also the same thing, recruitment. Because we made mention that yes, both the police and military are yet to recruit enough number of the military that we wanted to put in this under security issues. So we can make provision at least from this proposal that yes, this arms and ammunition and also recruitment, so that definitely things will improve.
I just want to observe firstly that this supplementary budget deals with the national situation of insecurity and therefore deserves the support of all. A part of it also is going to deal with the worldwide menace, the epidemic of COVID-19. And similarly, it deserves to be supported. But I just want to observe firstly, Mr. President, as you already know, Bayelsa had only one senator in this chamber when the current budget was discussed, deliberated upon, and passed. But nevertheless, the senator who was there was strong enough to carry the entire burden of the state with your support. And this chamber performed its role in legislating for the whole country. But let me just put it on notice that 2/3 of Bayelsa was not part of that. And I thought that in this supplementary appropriation, that some issues that are germane to the stability and security of that part of our country, because what affects a part affects the whole, should be attended to. But I've seen that it is only limited in a way, just direct appropriation to support the security services. The other point I wanted, therefore, in that connection to make is that there appears to be no special regard paid to supporting the security services that are stabilizing the region that produces the resources that keeps this country going. We are happy that there's relative stability there as a result of a combination of a lot of factors. Governors, security chiefs, and other leaders are working. But I thought that we shouldn't over-concentrate. I know that there is a challenge of insurgency. There is a challenge of banditry. And like I said, what affects a part affects the whole. Now that we have some stability there, I thought that we should also draw attention to the need to support the security services in those areas. As a governor, I know what we did, building facilities for the Navy, building facilities for the Army, establishing a base for them, and so on and so forth. So if I had the opportunity, I would have said this budget, supplementary budget, should also have some provisions dealing with support for the police, dealing with support for some of the services that the security officers are doing in the Niger Delta area. As I said earlier, on matters that have to do with stability, security, and health and well-being, there is no real division. And this budget, this supplementary appropriation, has my support and deserves to be supported by all. Finally, just to say that having brought this to Mr. Senate President's attention, I hope that when it gets to your kingdom, when we'll be dealing with the main appropriation bill for next year, that some of the issues that I'm raising will be brought to the Senate President's attention, and at that time, we hope to get some support so that some of the things that cannot go in now to support the security services in the Niger Delta and Bayelsa will be captured at that time.
I rise to support this supplementary budget that has been brought to the Senate by Mr. President, and particularly to align myself very strongly with the provision that has been made to strengthen the fight against insecurity. Mr. President, there's a scripture that says that no soldier goes to war at his own expense. It therefore means that in equipping the military and our security agencies to be combat ready, to fight successfully, effectively, and efficaciously the insecurity challenge that we are facing. The two components, the human component and of course the equipment component, has to be addressed. And this supplementary budget is making provision to equip the security agencies, particularly the military, to successfully prosecute the war against terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and all other criminalities that we are facing in the nation.
Why none of us will oppose this supplementary budget? Mr. President, it is important for us to advert the minds of senators and Nigerians to the general macro and microeconomic issues that will arise from the budget. Mr. President, yes, there's a need for the government to seriously pay attention to insecurity in the country and also the issue of COVID-19. But Mr. President, you have a budget of 890-something billion. And then you have a deficit of 760, Mr. President. That is bad budgeting. Mr. President, if we have a budget of 894 billion, and then you have a revenue inflow of 135 billion, and then you are experiencing a deficit of 760 billion in a budget. Mr. President, I don't think that while addressing a problem, you are creating numerous more problems than the one you seek to address. I said this because you look at the financing item of the budget. Mr. President, the financing item of the budget are from borrowing. And borrowing formed the bigger stock of the financing item, which is 715 billion. In the main budget, we have a very high deficit level, which of course have affected the macroeconomic management. We are having inflation. Nobody knows how this inflation are coming. And so we must be careful in addressing this problem. And so for me, Mr. President, we have discussed the issue of quantitative easing, which is what I think is going to happen here. The Committee on Finance have, in their investigation, recovered money from ministries and departments of over $1 trillion. And so I do not see how, if we recover that money, we are going to borrow when we know that this borrowing will add to the deficit of the country. And so, Mr. President, for me, borrowing is what worries me, and the financing item of the deficit is what should worry everybody. While we agree totally that there's a need for Mr. President to fight insurgency, terrorism, and all of that, we should also be mindful of the microeconomic management of the country, which has skyrocketed the exchange rate, which has brought about inflation in the country. And so if we have 135 billion revenue inflow, and you have a budget of 890-something, with a deficit of 760, Mr. President, that is bad budgeting. And this Senate should advert the minds of Nigerians that yes, we agree that this supplementary budget will pass, but the people who are responsible for this budgeting should think deeper. Like I said, Mr. President, because you were being distracted, the Committee on Finance have recovered over $1 trillion naira from ministries and departments. So why are we borrowing 800 and something and then adding to the deficit, which we already have over $5 trillion deficit? Because this will add to the deficit. What in turns this means is that in 2022 budget, we have a deficit of over 10 trillion. And that means that ab initio, you don't have a budget. So my worry is that let the Minister of Finance seek the money that has been recovered by the Committee on Finance, which was announced by my chairman, a public account, other than going to borrow this money and add to the deficit of the country, Mr. President.
There are some areas that we believe that other things should have been looked at carefully. If you look at the Office of the National Security Advisor, because of the counter-terrorism center that is currently under construction. I think we will try to look at that, and then the issue of this unmanned grants, and then also the trackers, because by the time we do that, I think we should be able to track all those bandits that are very close around.
While aligning myself with previous speakers, I just want to point out that there is need for us to also look at Nigerians who are victims of all these, criminalities, insurgencies, and banditry. Because a lot of people have been displaced from the IDPs, and I've not seen any provision to support so that they are stable, and that way we can be able to find a way to rehabilitate them back. Maybe when we come to look at the details, it will be necessary we look at succor for those who are falling victims of all this banditry.
Those in favor of this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
A supplementary bill for an act authorized the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 895,842,465,917 naira only, of which 173,445,506,644 and 64,000 naira only is for current non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 792,396,959,253 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021, SB 754, second reading.
A supplementary bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 895,842,465,917 naira only, of which 173,444,506,664 naira only is for current non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 722,396,959,253 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations to report back Tuesday next week. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues.
722.3 billion as contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure, while 173.4 billion as recurrent non-debt expenditure. The intent of the budget, which is for strengthening of security and vaccination of 70% of eligible Nigerians by 2022, was well acknowledged by the legislators. 2 weeks after, the Senate Committee on Appropriations has concluded work on the money bill, presented it at plenary, and the Senate has passed the bill. The amount increased by 86.8 billion as a result of some security agencies that were underfunded or not even provided for in the supplementary budget.
It's time to move that this August Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 SB 754. Mr. President, I so move.
I rise to second the motion as moved. I so second.
Consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021. Say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, please present the report.
It is my honor and privilege to present to you the report of the Senate Committee on Appropriations on the 2021 Supplementary Appropriation Bill SB 754. You may recall that the 2021 Supplementary Appropriation Bill in the sum of 895,465,917 naira only was read the first time on Tuesday, 22nd June 2021, when the President of the Senate read the executive communication from the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Excellency Muhammad Buhari. The Senate on Wednesday, the 23rd June 2021, debated on the general principles of the bill and referred same to the Appropriations Committee for further legislative action. Objective of the bill. Fundamentally, the bill seeks to, among other things, make available funds for the procurement of equipment for the military, procurement and administration of COVID-19 vaccines, and provisions of additional funds for public service wage adjustment to cater for sundry wage-related issues in the health and other sectors. Legislative action. Considering the fact that the committee was mandated to report on the bill on Tuesday, 29 June 2021, the committee requested from the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning the soft and hard copies of the bill. The committee also consulted with the leadership of relevant subcommittees for their views, as well as the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning for further clarifications, respectively. Observation. The committee observed that 1, the sum of 45.63 billion of the 83.56 billion required for COVID-19 vaccines program will be sourced through the existing World Bank loan as well as other grants. 2, the balance of 37.93 billion will be sourced from special reserves to levy accounts comprising 1, TSA, foreign currency component, 25 billion, Ministry of Finance Incorporated CHQ, optional, 5 billion, foreign revenue collection, 30 billion. This is 5% wheat flour levy, 15 billion, 5.15 wheat grain levy, 15 billion, NPC stroke NLNG, 40 billion, rollover capital unspent, 5 billion. The balance of 722.40 billion, which is for capital expenditure on procurement of additional equipment for the security and capital supplementation, will be sourced from new borrowing. Recommendation. The Senate Committee on Appropriations considered the contributions of members during debate on the general principles of and the detailed provision of the bill, engaged with the relevant stakeholder, and subsequently harmonized with the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations. Consequently, the committee, in line with the harmonized position with its House of Representatives counterpart, is recommending funding stroke an upward review of the funding of some security agencies that were grossly underfunded or not funded in the supplementary appropriation bill, like the Nigerian Navy, the Ministry of Police Affairs, Defense Intelligence Agency, Department of State Security Services, and Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. In line with the foregoing, the balance of 802.1 billion, which is for capital expenditure on procurement of additional equipment for the security and capital supplementation, will be sought from new borrowing. The committee hereby recommends as follows: the authorization of issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the aggregate sum of 982,729,695,343 naira only, of which 123,332,174,164 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 859,397,521,179 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st December 2021. In conclusion, on behalf of the Appropriation Committee, I wish to respectfully thank the Senate President and the entire leadership of the Senate, and indeed the entire distinguished senators for the support given to the committee.
Special levies, special accounts, total special levies, stroke accounts, 135 billion naira. Those in favor that this schedule remains part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Part B, aid and grants and restructured loans. Aid and grants, your foreign aid, stroke grant in cash, restructured existing loans, total aid and grants and restructured loans amounts 45,627,660,000 naira only. Those in favor that this stands part of the schedule, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes. Part C, recurrent non-debt expenditure, Ministry of Police Affairs, Headquarters, Police Formations and Commands, Ministry of Defense, Defense Headquarters, Nigerian Army, Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Air Force, Office of the National Security Advisor, National Intelligence Agency, Service-wide was Public Service Wage Adjustment. Total recurrent non-debt, 123,332,174,164 naira. Those in favor that this remains part of the schedule, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Part D, capital expenditure, Police Affairs, Ministry of Police Affairs, Police Formations and Commands, Ministry of Defense, Defense Headquarters, Nigerian Army, Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Air Force, Defense Space Administration, Defense Intelligence Agency, Ministry of Interior, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Office of the National Security Advisor, Office of the National Security Advisor Headquarters, Department of State Services, National Intelligence Agency, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, Federal Ministry of Health, Molecular Laboratory Equipment to Hospitals, National Orthopedic Hospital, Igbobi, 300 million, National Eye Center, Kaduna, 3 million, National Care Center, National Air Care Center, Kaduna, National Fistula Center, Abakaliki, National Fistula Hospital, Katsina, National Fistula Hospital, Sokoto, Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Calabar, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, FMC Asaba, Annex, Aniocha, and FMC Unguru. Capital supplementation, procurement and installation of new oxygen plants nationwide and repairs of oxygen plants in FCT hospitals. Vaccines procurement cost, Federal Government of Nigeria funding 29.85 million J&G vaccines under a VAT 45% plus 10% markup. Total capital expenditure amounts to 859,397,521,179 naira only. Those in favor that this stands part of the schedule, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The aggregate expenditure is 982,929,695,343 naira only. Those in favor that this stands part of the schedule, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The clauses. Those in favor that clause 1 stands part of this bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2, release of funds from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Those in favor that this clause stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 3, environment. Those in favor that clause 3 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 4, interpretation. Those in favor that this clause stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The short title. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum on page 6 Explanatory memorandum on page 6. Those in favor that this clause stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The long title is on page 1. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of Supply considered the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Part A, total special levies accounts as recommended. Part B, Schedule Part B, total aid grants and restructured loans as recommended. Schedule Part C, total recurrent non-debt expenditure as recommended. Schedule Part D, total capital expenditure as recommended. Aggregate expenditure as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Short title as recommended. Long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole on Committee of Supply? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
That this will be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 be now read the third time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act authorized the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation of the total sum of 895,842,465,917 naira only, of which 173,445,506,664 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 722,396,955,99,253 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021, SB 754, third reading.
Rise the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 895,465,917 naira only, of which 173,445,506,664 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 722,396,959,253 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021. Third reading taken and the bill is passed. Well, congratulations, but this is only one step of the entire process. Our committees on security agencies particularly, and the committees on health-related MDS. This budget, this supplementary budget, is targeted at addressing the security challenges in this country, and of course, the procurement, administration, and management of the COVID-19 vaccines. We expect our committees, the relevant committees, to be stiff, to be alive to their responsibilities for oversighting on how these funds will be deployed prudently. It is very important that we have a review of the application of these funds before we pass the 2022 appropriation bill. But this is a very necessary intervention by this National Assembly, particularly this Senate, and indeed the administration in the country here, that this is necessary for us to do. And we should continue with funding of our security agencies in 2022 appropriation bill, because we have to overcome the security challenges our country faces.
There have been a lot of motions, counter motions on the floor of the Senate about insecurity. So the leadership of the Senate, through the Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawal, met with the President many times, and also met with individual service chiefs. They will call the service chiefs with the chief of defense staff, all the service chiefs, including the Inspector General of Police, to come and testify before us in the Committee of the Whole in the Senate. And we prepared a memo and insisted with the executive that we must have a supplementary budget to keep Nigeria and Nigerian people safe, because all the information given to us by the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police and Director General of SSS and NIA, and all of them pointing out lack of materials to work. And that lack of materials to work means not enough fund to purchase this material. So we went head on to be able to address on this issue. It might not be socially and political right, but it's going to be active enough to keep our people safe, because it's only people, a society that is very safe and a society that can move from point A to B, can do business, and that can do any other thing. So us in the Senate and indeed the National Assembly, that budget was a priority because it was an outcome of lingering calls from the senators and members of House of Representatives on the executive to be able to do something to quickly intervene on this security. I'm sure with this you can see the day we passed that supplementary budget. The Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, on many occasions, were asking all relevant committees to follow up and oversight. And I'm sure they are gearing up the Committee on Army, Air Force, Navy, Police, Intelligence, and the Defense. They are all working very hard to see that they will do a proper oversight to make sure the money appropriated will be used as appropriated. Our duty is to be here to appropriate. I'm sure we have given them almost what they needed quickly. I don't know whether the military budget, the security budget is going to go up or come down, but I know we have done a reasonable job until they bring the appropriation bill. When they get it, we'll look at it. Our duty here is to consider what the executive said then, because health is wealth. We want our people to be healthy. Many people are skeptical about the vaccine. Many people don't trust that COVID is real, but I can tell you that COVID is very real, and I can also be happy to tell you that COVID kills. So I stand by the executive for appropriating that money for the life of our people, whether they like it or not. Some people are skeptical about this virus, but the virus is real. It's killing everybody. We have been very lucky in Nigeria that the Nigerian government, one, have been able to tackle these problems, and secondly, the Presidential Committee have been able to advise Nigerians on really what to do. So I'm excited that even international communities are commending us on how far we have gone on this program. So I'm excited that we are making money available to the executives to be able to take care of life of Nigerians, because our lives are very important. Because if you are not healthy, you don't have anything. If you are healthy, you have wealth in your hand. So the Senate President also, and the entire leadership of Senate, have called all our committees, relevant committees that look after in health, to also make sure that mandatory oversight, to make sure that this money is used for what is budgeted for. So when I see people saying that they are borrowing money to do all these things, no, it might be right economically, but see, we will regret it if we keep quiet. So it's better to borrow than to keep quiet. It might not be economically viable, but it can be life-saving, more viable than economics. And life is wealth.
The supplementary budget, as you well know, was sent to us by the President with the sole purpose of strengthening the military and also providing additional funds for COVID. It's unfortunate that the insurgency and the insecurities that we've been dealing with has extended to this for this period. And you also have to know that equipment that we purchase and over time is not manufactured here. When you have an extended period of military activities like that, you're going to be depleting whatever resources you have, hardware resources you have. And as such, you also need to procure. So obviously, they've seen that there's a bit of a shortfall in the last budget that we had. That may not be enough to take care of a lot of the resources they need, both military and also software. And that's where that one came in, and that's why we've approved it. As for the COVID, obviously we also know what the issues are. The vaccines are something that we have to continue to procure. We've been lucky that we got some through COVAX and some of these other people. But obviously we need to also be very proactive. Unfortunately, I mean, you would have hoped that the pandemic, you would have hoped that it would have started diminishing by now, but now they're talking about another variant that's also coming up, and I'm praying that we don't have the incident of that in Nigeria, because that's also going to put enormous amount of stress even on our capacity to handle that, because our resources. So what we're trying to do is to procure as much of the vaccines as possible to make sure that as many of our people are vaccinated, and hopefully they're protected from this virus that is ongoing. We have to work within what we have as much as we can. Hopefully, thank God that the virus has, unfortunately we lost some people and some people got infected, but it hasn't been at the scale of what we have in some of the foreign countries. But nevertheless, we also have to vaccinate as many of our people as possible, and hopefully try and get to, if possible, even 50%, so we can develop some kind of herd immunity from majority of the populace. So what we've done is that at least within this budget, we try and at least provide for as much as we can, at least let people get at least even their first dose if possible. While at this government, it's a continuous thing anyway. So I'm sure, once they've exhausted as much of this one, they're also going to make allowances, hopefully maybe in the next budget that's coming up, for additional vaccines to be procured. I really hope, people will not, they will get over that skepticism and really take this thing very seriously. I've gotten my 2 dosage of the vaccine, and you can all see now that we have a third variant that is coming about now, the Delta variant, and people are saying that it's even stronger and it's more infectious than the first one. So my advice is for everybody to be protected, and because if you look at what happened in India, it's quite almost unfortunate. We don't want to get to that point where our hospitals are overrun and the infection and has become so massive that the healthcare can even not take care of it. So it's better to be protected than to be sorry.
Senate approved external borrowing of $6.183 billion for funding of part of the 2021 budget deficit.
That the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt on the request for a resolution authorizing implementation of the external borrowing of $2.343 trillion, about $6.183 billion in the 2020 appropriation Act through the issuance of Eurobond in the international capital market. I so move, Mr. President.
I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the committee, of the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt on the request for a resolution authorizing the implementation of the external borrowing of 2.343 trillion, about $6.183 billion in the 2021 Appropriation Act through the issuance of Eurobond in the international capital market. Say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
On the request of Mr. President for the resolution authorizing the implementation of the new external borrowing of 2.343 trillion naira, about $6.183 billion in the 2021 Appropriation Act through the issuance of Eurobond in the international market. The President of the Senate, Federal Republic of Nigeria, at this sitting on Tuesday, 1st June 2021, read a communication dated 6th May 2021 from the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, requesting for a resolution of the Senate authorizing the implementation of the new external borrowing by raising the sum of 2,343,387,942,848 naira, about $6.183 billion, provided for the 2021 Appropriation Act through the issuance of Eurobond in the international capital market. The President's request is for authorization to raise $3 billion, but not more than $6.183 billion, being the U.S. equivalent of the above naira sum at 379 naira per dollar from three sources, namely multilateral, bilateral, and also from international capital market, ICM, through the issuance of Eurobond. The request is in consonance with the provision of sections 21.1 and 27.1 of the Debt Management Office Establishment Act, etc., 2003, and also with the provision of section 41.2 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, 2007, mandate of the committee. The committee was mandated by the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to raise this above sum to part finance the budget deficit in 2021 Appropriation Act, item number 330. Methodology. The task before the committee was to undertake a thorough screening of the terms and conditions of the loan from the international capital market, multilateral and bilateral institutions. The proposed terms and conditions attached to the new borrowing in the 2021 Appropriation Act from development agencies, providing the fund was used as a major tool for the committee in considering the request of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In the course of our assignment, the committee invited the following government functionaries. 1, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. 2, Director General, Debt Management Office. 3, the Governor Central Bank of Nigeria. Reference to working documents. The following reference to working documents were relied upon by the committee in the course of its assignment. 1, communication from Mr. President together with the attack terms and conditions of the proposed loan. 2, Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. 3, the Debt Management Office Act 2003. 4, document from Debt Management Office. 5, document from Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and document from Central Bank of Nigeria. For the members of the committee are stated there, our findings and observations. 1, The committee knows with utmost importance genuine and serious concerns of Nigerians about the level of sustainability and servicing of our external borrowing. 2, the committee also knows that due to shortfall in our annual revenue in relation to our needs for rapid infrastructural and human capital development, we have had to pass deficit budget every year, requiring us to borrow to finance the deficit in our budget. 3, the new borrowing is calculated at exchange rate of USD 379 per dollar, raised from multiple sources, multilateral and bilateral lenders, through the issuance of Eurobond in international capital market. 4, the committee observed that proceeds of the $6.138 billion will be used to fund various special capital projects in the 2021 budget, which includes projects specifically from priority sectors of the economy, namely power, transportation, agriculture and rural development, education, health, provision of counterpart funding for multilateral and bilateral projects, defense, and water resources. 5, the committee knows the table below showing the comparative yields of SGN bonds in domestic security market and Nigeria's Eurobonds in international capital market as at 30th March 2021. The committee knows that the final terms and conditions, interest rate, tenors, in the case of Eurobond, can only be determined at a point of issuance of the bond in international capital market and will be subject to market conditions prevailing at the time of issuance. 7, the committee further knows that the primary listing of the bond will be on London Stock Exchange, while the secondary listing will be on the Nigeria Stock Exchange and the financial market dealers' quotations and the Security Exchange. 8, the committee observed that the multilateral and bilateral institutions operate on standard terms and conditions, and Nigeria secures the best terms and conditions within the context of the market as stated in Appendix 1 as attached. If you look at that page, all the different multilateral associations and their tenors are there. These are the conditions of the loan. Resolution or recommendation. The committee resolved as follows. 1, that the Senate do approve the request of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the issuance of $3 billion but not more than $6,183,081,40 Eurobond in international capital market for the implementation of the new external borrowing of $2,343,383,942,848 naira for the financing of part of the deficit authorized in the 2021 Appropriation Act. 2, that the Senate do approve that the amount authorized above may be raised from multiple sources, such as the international capital market and any other multilateral or bilateral sources as may be available. 3, that the Senate direct the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Director General of Debt Management Office, and the Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria to submit to the National Assembly within 10 working days, excluding the day of close of trading, a letter containing the United States dollars amount so raised and received as a result of the above approval, together with the applicable exchange rates. Mr. President, I want to state specifically here that this resolution we are approving today is a result of the deficit in our budget, and this has been approved under the 2021 budget. So it's not a new borrowing as such. It is exactly what we recommended in that budget that we are actually exercising here. Conclusion. The committee wishes to express its gratitude to the President of the Senate, the principal officers, and the entire members of the Senate for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I so move, Mr. President.
When you look at their recommendations, sir, that's 6. But go to page 4. I can remember vividly, last 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, CBN has changed the exchange rate from 379 to 400 and something. So I just want to ask the chairman whether they made reference to central bank so that we don't go back forward and backward tomorrow. Because CBN has changed this exchange rate. Thank you, Mr. President.
At the time that this project was prepared, that was the rate that was used. And we cannot at this time change it. That's why we gave a proviso that, if you look at the recommendation, the resolution that we are passing on number 3, we're asking that once all the transactions are concluded, and that they should write to us with all the transactions and the printouts so that we're able to straighten our records.
Resolutions or recommendations. On page 6, recommendation 1, that the Senate do approve the request of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the issuance of $3 billion, but not more than $6,183,081,643 $40 Eurobond in the international capital market for the implementation of the new external borrowing of $2,387,942,848 naira only for the financing of part of the deficit authorized in the 2021 Appropriation Act. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, that the Senate do approve that the amount authorized above may be raised from multiple sources such as the international capital market and any other multilateral or bilateral sources as may be available. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And recommendation 3, that the Senate directs the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Director General of the Debt Management Office, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria to submit to the National Assembly within 10 working days, excluding the day of close of trading, a letter containing the United States dollars amount so raised and received as a result of the above approval together with applicable exchange rate. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me commend our committee for this thorough job, but I also want to echo what the chairman said in his presentation, our chairman of local and foreign debt, that this is not a new loan. This is a borrowing plan that we approved before with the budget 2021. What we have done is simply to provide the resolutions, the necessary resolutions that will enable the government to go and borrow. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. And I want to also advise the executive arm of government that any cent, every cent counts. Our committees should be alive and alert on how the funds that we borrowed will be put to use. No frivolous expenditures should be entertained. I imagine that everybody in the trust of public funds, especially these loans, will be as prudent and as economical as possible. Thank you very much.
Senate approved the 2018-2020 federal government external borrowing plan of $8.3 billion United States dollars and 490 million euros from various international financial institutions for various projects.
I rise to move the motion that the Senate do receive and conduct the report of the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt on the 2018-2020 federal government external borrowing rolling plan.
I rise to second the motion that the Senate receives and considers the report of the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts in respect of the Federal Government External Borrowing Plan 2018-2020. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts on the 2018-2020 Federal Government External Borrowing Rolling Plan number 1, say aye. Those against, say nay. That is aye.
Debt report on the proposed 2018-2020 External Borrowing Plan number 1. The background. The Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on Tuesday, the 1st of June 2021, considered the request from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria requesting for approval of the Federal Government 2018-2020 External Borrowing Rolling Plan. The communication, together with the attached schedule, was referred to the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt for further legislative action. The request of Mr. President is in compliance with the provision of the Debt Management Office Establishment Act 2003 DMO and the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 FRA, which both enjoin the President to seek and obtain the approval of the National Assembly in respect of the external borrowing program of the Federation and the states. The provision of the above statutes, together with the revised guideline for external and domestic borrowing issued by the DMO, pursuant to its power under the DMO Act, require that all tiers of government of the Federation shall borrow only on the following conditions. 1, shall specify the purpose for which the borrowing is intended, which shall only be for long-term capital expenditure and human capital development. 2, such borrowing shall be on concessional terms with low interest rate and with a reasonably long amortization period. 3, shall present a cost-benefit analysis detailing the economic and social benefit of the purpose for which the intended borrowing will be applied. 4, shall provide satisfactory proof of the existence of prior authorization in the appropriation law for the purpose for which the borrowing is to be utilized. 5, such borrowing shall have the approval of the relevant Executive Council. 6, such borrowing shall be approved by resolution of the relevant Legislative Assembly. 7, such external borrowing shall be executed for and on behalf of the federal government by the Minister of Finance or any other person the Minister may designate in writing. Financial institutions and development agencies are required by the above statutes to request and obtain proof of compliance with the provision of Part 6 of the Federal Responsibility Act, Fiscal Responsibility Act, before lending to any government in the Federation. The Act provides that failure to do so is an offense and may render the facility unlawful, thus unenforceable among other sanctions. 2, mandate of the committee. The committee has the mandate of the Senate to consider the above request and make appropriate recommendation for consideration and approval of the Senate and plenary. Methodology. The task before the committee was to undertake a thorough and detailed consideration of each and every project together with the proposed terms and conditions attached to the borrowing from the development agency, provided the fund, in order to ensure that a genuine need to borrow and an ability to repay is established. Due to the enormity of the task and the need for careful consideration and appraisal of the various projects and the intended financial accommodation sought, the committee decided to adopt a phased approach to the consideration. The committee held interactive sessions and received written presentation from the following federal ministries, departments and agencies, and the government of Edo State, Ondo, who were all invited to appear before it during the interactive session for briefing and to deal with questions and provide details. 1, Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. 2, Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. 3, Federal Ministry of Transportation. 4, Federal Ministry of Power Resources. 5, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. 6, Federal Ministry of Aviation. 7, Federal Ministry of Interior. 8, Transmission Company of Nigeria. 9, National University Commission. 10, National Identity Management Commission. 11, Northeast Development Commission. 12, Debt Management Office. 13, Government of Edo State. 14, Government of Ondo State. And 15, Government of Ogun State. 4, reference to working documents. The following reference to working documents were relied upon by the committee in the course of its assignment. A, communication from Mr. President together with the attached schedule. B, Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. C, Debt Management Office 2003. 4, revised 2012 external and domestic borrowing guidelines for federal and state governments and their agencies issued by DMO. E, document presented by the various stakeholders. 5, committee findings and observations. 1, the committee knows with utmost importance the genuine and very serious concern of Nigerians about the level and sustainability to serviceability of our borrowing activities in the last decade. 2, committee further knows that our debt service figures constitute a huge drain on our revenue to the extent that it can account for over 30% of our expenditure in the annual budget. 3, the committee knows that due to the shortfall in our annual revenue in relation to our need and rapid infrastructure and human capital development, we have to pass deficit budget every year, requiring us to borrow to finance deficit in our budget. 4, the committee knows that out of the total borrowing request of 36 billion 837 million $281,250 contained in the forwarded request of Mr. President, a sum of 26 billion 154,000 million $536,533 is for funds proposed to be borrowed from various financial institutions for the People's Republic of China. 5, the committee knows that there are proposed projects in the Ministry of Transportation, FCT, Aviation, Works and Housing, Agriculture and Water Resources, and some commissions such as National University Commission, Northeast Development Commission, and the National Identity Management Commission are mostly ongoing projects and programs in respect of which external borrowed funds have been spent in the past, including loans. 6, these projects have a multiplier effect on stimulating economic growth through infrastructural development, job creation, and poverty alleviation, stimulation of commercial and engineering activities, and the consequent tax revenues payable to the government as a result of these productive activities. Works and Housing, Federal Ministry of Works. 1, construction of Lafia Bypass Road and the dualization of 9th Mile, Enugu, Otukpo, Makurdi Road Project, Kefi Phase 1, at a cost of $845.7 billion and to be funded by China Exim Bank. 2, construction of Akwanga, Jos, Bauchi, Gombe Carriageway Project at a cost of $1.33 billion to be financed by China Exim Bank. The total for the Federal Ministry of Works is $2,178,753,419 US. The committee found that the China Exim Bank has expressed its willingness to support Nigeria by providing funds for the construction of critical road infrastructure in line with our desire to promote the real sectors of the economy and facilitate efficient movement of goods and persons around the country. B, the committee knows that the various other road projects across the various geopolitical zones of the country are simultaneously undergoing critical rehabilitation and or reconstruction. Transportation sector, Federal Ministry of Transportation. The projects under that is 1, Port Harcourt to Maiduguri with branches to Yola and Damaturu rail lines. Total distance of 1,408 kilometers. The amount allocated to be borrowed is $2.48 billion and to be funded by Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. Second one is Kano, Maradi, El with branch to Duse at a cost of $1.959 billion to be funded by European ECA. The committee found out that these projects are in line with National Infrastructure Master Plan and the 25-year strategic vision for the development of the Nigerian Railway 2002. The committee found that China Exim Bank has previously extended loans for phases of some of these railway infrastructural projects across the nation. 9. Aviation sector. Federal Ministry of Aviation. 1. The projects that they want to carry out are 1. 4 airport terminal expansion project, phase 2, at a cost of $208.9 million to be funded by China Exim Bank. 2. Accelerate works on 4 airports expansion projects at a cost of $183.6 million to be financed by China Exim Bank. The total other aviation is $392.5 million. The committee found that the projects are intended to meet the increasing demands of the nation's air transportation and full rehabilitation and realization of the functioning of the 4 international airports. B. The committee knows that the implementation of the works on the airport will improve the development of the aviation industry in the country and improve the socio-economic development of the country. Federal Capital Territory, Ministry of Federal Capital Territory. The project under that heading is supply of rolling stock and depot equipment for Abuja light rail project. The cost is $157 million to be funded by China Exim Bank. The committee knows that the provision of a rail system for the Federal Capital Territory is crucial for sustainable integration of the political, social, and economic activities within the satellite towns and the Federal Capital City. B. The committee knows that the completion of the project and the deployment of the rolling stock and the equipment will provide cheaper, efficient, and safe transportation system and ease of movement of residents of the Federal Capital Territory. Education sector. 1. Under the education sector, we have 3 items that are to be funded. 1 is Second Africa Higher Education Center of Excellence for Development Impact Project, Second AC Impact. The cost is $75 million to be funded by World Bank. The Second Africa Higher Education Center Excellence for Development Impact, Second AC Impact, and $37 and 490 million euro under the 2018-2020 external borrowing rolling plan. The funding agencies are well detailed. They are from World Bank, China Exim Bank, Industrial Commercial Bank of China, African Development Bank, African Going Together Fund, French Development Agency, European Investment Bank, European ECA Agency, and International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFDA, totaling $8,325,526,537 and 490 million euro. The detailed schedules are also attached, numbered from A to I. The terms and conditions of the loan from the funding agencies will be forwarded to National Assembly prior to the execution of same for concurrence and proper documentation. Conclusion. The committee wishes to place on record that the above recommended approved projects amounting to 8.35 billion and 490 million euro are projects in respect of which the committee has concluded its legislative due diligence. B. The committee knows that there are various other projects contained in the request of Mr. President which have not been listed in this batch of the report and are being processed by the committee. C. Committees say that in respect of this outstanding request, interactions, considerations, and discussions are ongoing with the respective implementing ministries, departments, and agencies, and the committee recommendation will be laid before the Senate as will be done contained in subsequent reports. The committee wishes to sincerely express its appreciation to the Senate leadership for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I so submit, Mr. President.
Aviation sector. Mr. President, wide locations of these projects are mentioned in many sectors. With regards to aviation, they just mentioned 4 international terminal expansion projects without mentioning the particular airports. In every other area they mentioned, they mentioned the location of the projects. But with the aviation, they just say 4 airports without mentioning the location of those the particular airports. That's my observation, Mr. President.
Let's start with the recommendation 1, that the Senate do approve the underlisted ongoing negotiation of external borrowing in the sum of $8,325,526,537 only under the 20 and 490 million euro under the 2018-2020 external borrowing rolling plan. And the details are World Bank, $796 million, China Exim Bank, $2,901 million,